Should we bring her in?
We should.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here.
You're here, and we're so happy that you are.
Yay, thank you. Thank you for having me. I've been enjoying all the Twitter buzz and everything leading up to this. I love the backgrounds. I'm excited about this raffle.
Yes, yeah, you can win. We have had multiple questions whether you will sing for your code or not. So it seems to be a thing.
Well, Visual Studio and I have been fighting this week, so it's going to be angry singing, but there will probably be some booths at some point. So.
Angry singing. That would be a punishment if I start singing for Visual Studio.
Yeah. No, we're not getting along like we usually do, so it's okay. So we'll see how the talk goes today. I'm very excited.
Be kind, Visual Studio. So where are you joining in from?
I am in Boston, Massachusetts, in the U.S., East Coast. And it is warm and rainy today, even though we got 2 feet of snow last week and then an ice storm. The weather makes no sense,
sounds...
but
yeah.
it's sunny and rainy. I don't know how that happens, but that's where we're at. Yeah.
At least in South Sweden where we live, well, not the south, very south, but in Stockholm where we live, we do get some confusing weather changes as well. Yeah. One day it's snow and the next day it's like sunny and people are walking around in t-shirts and then it starts snowing again. And at least we're consistent with complaining about the weather.
Mm-hmm. We're always dissatisfied with the weather.
Yeah. There's no good weather.
It's too warm, it's too cold, it's too rainy.
It's too bright, it's too dark.
Yeah. I'm going to have to come visit because every time I go to the West Coast, people are like, it is what it is. It's totally fine. And I'm like, what is this attitude? I hate this.
What do you mean fine? There's no fine weather. You can always find something wrong with the weather.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So...
Well, there you go. And I know that you have prepared a talk for us.
Oh, yes, I have. Sorry, I have to put my hair
Well, I
up.
hope so.
I thought it was going to cooperate, but now it's bothering me. Yes, I am very excited because I'm here to talk about Visual Studio and .NET MAUI. So how we'll do, it's mostly demo because I know I only have 25 minutes and I'm sure there will be plenty of questions, which is very exciting. And I'm here to answer all of them. But I also thought there were like a lot of really cool Maui talks today. And so I was like, I'm not going to be able to beat out, like Gerald or Sam or James and his Blazor talk. So I'll just talk about all the cool stuff I like in VS that make you hopefully more productive when you write Maui apps or otherwise. And we'll see.
Well, I'm for one.
How that goes.
I'm very excited about this talk.
Sounds awesome.
Good.
Take it away.
All right. And thank you three, of course, for all the chat moderating and everything that you've done to set up. This has been great. So definitely folks who are watching, ask your questions in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. It's gonna be a fun one. So yeah, let's talk about VS 2022 productivity for .NET MAUI. So first and foremost, let me just get out of the slides right away because we don't need them. Oh, yeah. And then let's look at the web browser that I brought up. This one. At the schedule today, if you didn't see Gerald's talk this morning or this, I don't know what time zone you're in, go watch that because it's the intro about Maui. So I'm not going to do too much of a Maui intro, but that's a good place to go start. And then you can see Sam doing migration with Maui right after me. And then James is going to talk about Blazor Hybrid, which uses Maui right after that. And then Daniel Roth is going to talk about Blazor. And it's going to be a big party for the next, 2.5 hours. So have a good time with that. And that is just why I'm not going to go too much into what Maui is, because I don't want to bore you, because you will hear about it other times today. So before we look at the code, let's pull up how to actually get into a Maui app. This is the Visual Studio installer. You can see I have two. I have the regular preview and the internal preview. I am demoing out of internal preview today because, like I said, Visual Studio and I are not getting along, and it is the only one I can get things to work in. But you will be able to get the bits that I am showing today probably mid next week, including the latest Maui stuff. So to install Maui, you need the preview version of Visual Studio. You can't get it in the regular release version because it's in preview, but you want to go into this mobile development with .NET target here. Let me turn on Zoom it too, because where is it? In a minute. This is going to be difficult to zoom in on, but you can see there's .NET MAUI preview checkbox right here. All you have to do is check that, and that will automatically, in the preview branch, keep you up to date with the latest preview Visual Studio, the latest preview Visual Studio bits for Xamarin and Maui, and the latest Maui SDK bits. So next week, it'll be preview 13 that you get in Visual Studio preview, which is pretty exciting. And then you can file new. If I launch like the launcher for this, and it's going to go on the wrong monitor. There it is. And I do create a new project, and I saw Layla was just showing this, which is exciting. All the different Maui apps. So the regular Maui one, and then of course Maui Blazor, which is super exciting, which you'll learn about later, and then a class library. So we have templates. So you can just click them and then file new, and it's very exciting. So I already created them because it takes a second. And this is what your Maui app looks like nowadays. It's just this one single project, very exciting. Gerald probably talked about this, so I'm not going to repeat him too much. But you have your XAML and your code behind, and you can do your MVVM and your platforms folders and all that fun stuff, and it's great. One thing in this Visual Studio 2022 world that I think is amazing, besides the fact that it's 64-bit, if you haven't heard, we've talked about it a lot because it's amazing, but it is 64-bit. You can do themes now. So there's the regular themes in Visual Studio, blue, dark, light, whatever, system settings. But there's this Get More Themes button, which takes you to the Visual Studio Marketplace, where people have been uploading all their own types of themes, just as Visual Studio extensions, which is awesome. There's like cool ones like Marvel and Cyberpunk. Then James Montemagno, you can roast him for this later, made this horrible red theme. It's the Visual Studio Code red theme, but you can convert the Visual Studio Code themes to Visual Studio themes now, which is there's a couple tools for it. There's an extension in VS by Mads that does it, Mads Christensen. There's also this theme converter for VS. So if you're someone who's sick of the basic Visual Studio themes, this is very important. This is a game changer for me. I change my theme too often. So I'm just going to leave it on regular dark for this because I will have the wackiest colors. My favorite pack so far, though, and I don't have it on the internal preview, which is why it didn't pop up, is the DevLabs theme pack, which just has all of the standard VS Code themes there for you and installs them all. And then you can just, in that theme dropdown, just pick the one you want. I'm a big fan of Dark Plus. So anyways, that's really important. I know we want to do Maui development and all that, but themes are if your IDE isn't pretty and reflect your personality, then what's the point? The other thing that Visual Studio 2022 has that I didn't actually know until I was at .NET Conf in the fall, there's vertical tabs now. What? Which I am so excited about. This is sorting it just by project, but there's only one project for Maui. So what I can do is go to the options tab here and where is it? I can change the colorizing to be by file extension or by project. So it's going to sort this by project, but the actual color of the tab is based on the file extension. So if I go into my XAML CS file, you can see this is like a teal. And main page XAML is like the blue. It's because it's XAML versus C#. And then that gets even better when you start having things like your Blazor files or CSS or whatever else you might want to add. I'm a big vertical tabs fan because I have a big monitor. So it works for me. But I know that people don't like change. You can also turn off the grouping. So if you just want it to be free for all, your tabs in here. Let's put it back on top. Okay. Now to the Maui stuff, because that's what you're here for. But new IDE stuff is fun and new. Let's run this app. So I have my target framework selected here, .NET 6 Windows. And this is actually just pulling in from the project file. So if I go to edit project file here, you can see I have all these target frameworks listed. And one of them is .NET 6 Windows, blah, 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 blah. And so that is where this list here is populating all of that from. And so it gives me the Windows machine as just an option to deploy to. So let's give it a second to build. I pre-built and pre-deployed everything, but everything is slow. Everything needs caffeine today. So I don't know how long this is going to take. It's going to be great. It's thinking. It's doing all the build stuff. There we go. Boop, boop, boop. And it is going to pop up on probably this monitor, which is not the monitor you can see. But that's okay. Because when it does, there we go. When it does pop up, instead of dragging this app over to the other monitor, that would be a pain. I can just go into the XAML Live preview right here, and I will pin this, and I will zoom it in a little bit. And this is actually my running app. So when I go and I click it on my main monitor right here, I can see inside of the IDE it updating. So this is really helpful because I can look at what my app looks like on a single monitor, and then I can do things like my XAML hot reload. Like I can add a background color to the scroll view. Just type it in. Don't have to touch anything. It immediately updates on the app on this monitor, but also in the live preview, so I know exactly what it's going to look like. I can change my words around. Boop, boop, boop. There's your first boops, everybody. See, I can't code without booping. And now I'll say, welcome to .NET MAUI. Let me zoom that in a little bit more. It's a little weird. There you go. Click some more and all that stuff. Of course, there's also .NET Hot Reload. As I started off this talk saying, Visual Studio and I are fighting right now, so I can't show it to you. It will be fixed shortly. I filed a bug. I'm a good PM. I file bugs when I break things. But while the app is running, you can actually just hit this little fire emoji button and change the C#. So in the template, what I like to do is just increment the counter plus equals 2 instead, hit the fire emoji or hit the save button. You can turn on hot reload on file save right here. And then it changes it. And then you hit the button, it goes up by 2. It's a really cool demo. We've shown it before. I just don't have it working. Otherwise, I would. So that's 1/4 really of the MAUI story, but 1/3 of the MAUI story on Windows. So we have 4 target platforms with MAUI. We have Android, iOS, Windows, and Mac. So you can't write a Mac desktop app on a Windows machine because it's a Windows desktop, and it would be weird for it to run a Mac app. Although we are looking at ways to maybe make that easier one day, just not for the GA of MAUI, which ships in May. But Windows is 1/3 of the puzzle on the Windows development machine. So the next one that I want to show is Android. So I'll switch my target framework over and we'll take a look at what we have here. We have 2 drop downs here. We have Android emulators, which are kind of your go-to Android. If you don't have an Android device, that's probably the way that most people test. If you do have an Android device, you can plug it in and use it as a local device. But with Windows 11, there's a new thing we can use, and it is this horribly long word, Microsoft Corporation Subsystem for Android TM. What that is the Windows Subsystem for Android. Oh my goodness, the smart snapping. I can't drag things anymore. It screws me up. So this is the ability to run Android as a subsystem on Windows 11 natively on your device. Like you can see it sees the GPUs I have in here, and it's dynamically choosing which one is the best one for the Android apps I'm running. So it's using my 1070 right now on my local machine. And so I can install apps from the Amazon App Store for Android and use them. Like this is just a simple flight tracker app. And what I did was I turned on developer mode right here, and that gives you access to the IP address for your Windows subsystem for Android. So I copied it, and we'll copy it just so I show you. I went into my ADB command prompt right here, which you can get to right from the IDE. Drag that over. Look at that beautiful Windows terminal. Chef's kiss. So then I just typed ADB connect. I copy pasted that IP address that I already had, and I already connected to it, so it says already connected. Otherwise, it would connect. And this pops up right here. So I can build and run this same app now as an Android app. So it's going to look like an Android app. It's going to use the native Android controls under the hood instead of the native Windows controls under the hood. And it's going to run as if it was running on an Android operating system, but on my machine. This is way easier, in my opinion, than futzing around with emulators, because I always fight with emulators. I don't know why. The only real limitation of this is that it has to be developed and distributed through the Amazon Android store. So if you're using Google Play APIs, they're not going to work here, like for maps or stuff like that. Then you're going to want to test on an actual device or an emulator. But for just getting started, this is amazing because now I have literally this Android app running on my Windows machine. And it's the same thing. I can interact with it. I can go and I can hot reload. So like, let's get rid of this pink background color, as pretty as it is. Boop, 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 boop. Click this. Oh. Uh-oh. I'm sorry, hot reload. What did I do? Okay, we'll fix it. It's an internal build. And I have all the tools of Visual Studio to develop this Android app with .NET MAUI, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. And XAML hot reload as well as .NET hot reload. So hot reloading in C# will work for your Android app as well, which is pretty awesome. I don't know why it's not working right now. It did 25 minutes ago. So I'm going to have to file another bug. That's exciting. All right. So I stopped that. We're going to do for the third piece of the puzzle on Windows here, which is the dreaded iOS development. Now, iOS development is great nowadays. There are a zillion different ways to create iOS apps, whether you're on a Mac or on Windows. But traditionally, it's been pretty painful on Windows. I think the way that most folks who are Xamarin developers have done it before is they've paired to their Mac with this little button here over the network, and then it will build on the Mac host and then spit the app back over onto like a remoted iOS simulator. We have that feature, of course, still in MAUI. But we also brought over a feature that we have been testing out for the past year or so called Hot Restart, which is very fun. And I have my iPhone plugged in to my PC right now. No Macs anywhere. My Mac is in the other room. It might be dead. I fell asleep with it on my lap last night. So it's not on. I promise. And I have my iPhone right here. And I would screen mirror it, but my screen mirroring software is broken, and I don't know why. So we're having a great Thursday here in Boston. Everything's broken. It's totally fine. And so it pops up right here. When I choose the iOS framework for .NET 6, it pops up as an iOS local device. And that's using the iTunes APIs that are on Windows to communicate with the iPhone. So I have an Apple developer account. I pay my yearly subscription or whatever. I logged into Visual Studio with it. In tools options, Xamarin Apple accounts, you can see. That's my email. Feel free to email me, maleger@microsoft.com. But that's my Apple ID for my Apple developer account. I'm signed in. And so when I plugged in my iPhone the first time, it actually went and made a provisioning certificate for it. So I can now run this app on my iPhone without a Mac. So what I will do is hit play and cross my fingers that this works beautifully, because this is always the part that scares me. When we had shipped Xamarin Forms 5, everything with Hot Restart worked perfectly. And then we started the MAUI stuff and everything broke again. But it looks like it's in a good mood today. So what I'll do is I'll launch it. I'm so sorry. I don't have good screen mirroring right now. But it's got that beautiful .NET icon. And then let's try that again. Hold on. I think I waited too long and it crashed. Let's see. If not, I have the app on here anyways, so it's fine. One more try on it. There we go. Launch the app. I have my beautiful .NET splash screen, which is all shared in my MAUI code. And then it's going to think for a second and maybe start up. There we go. And that's the same app again, running on my iPhone right here. Look at this. And I can click it. Now it says my current count is 6. And this is running with the native iOS controls. So doesn't look like the Windows app, doesn't look like the Android app. It rotates. Look at that. It's all in a scroll view, so it scrolls. Very exciting. This is probably the jankiest way I've ever demoed this. I always have my screen mirroring stuff working, but I don't know why. I don't know if I'm on the wrong Wi-Fi. I don't know what's going on. And then I close it. It kills debugging for me. Very nice. I don't know what this hot reload bug is. It's another one I filed. But that is kind of the wrap around, fast track of all the platforms you can target on Visual Studio for Windows with MAUI, and my favorite way of going and developing for each of them. So Windows, I just do it natively on Windows. Android, I prefer the subsystem for Android, but I also have an Android device, so sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I do an emulator if I need to, but Subsystem's pretty great. And then I almost exclusively use Hot Restart with my Apple developer account logged in and my physical iPhone. I don't really play around with the pair to Mac stuff anymore because, as you can tell by my screen mirroring woes, my Wi-Fi is jank and doesn't always connect. So that's how I do it. And it all works for Maui, and I love it. And things are going to continue to get better because if I pop back into my slides, let's talk roadmap. Present button. Nice. So what I demoed today was all Visual Studio for Windows. Part of that was because of time, and also part of that is just because it is in a better state right now. We will talk about Mac in a second. Everything we're working on for Visual Studio for Windows until Maui goes GA. So everything we're working on for Maui support in VS Windows is bug fixing. So all the building blocks are there. Like you saw Hot Reload's there, Hot Restart's there, build, deploy, debug. The IntelliSense is working great. Multi-targeting, that drop down, all those things, they're all working. So we are working on bug fixing pretty much from here on out so that when I XAML Hot Reload on the Android subsystem for Windows, it just works instead of sometimes not work. So that's fun. Of course, also making sure all of our things like compliance and accessibility and security and all those ducks are in a row before we ship a GA Maui. And that's important stuff to do. So then we'll work on what's not there right now on Windows, which the main thing is just if you ever do like the right-click archive for publishing thing, that's pretty much the main feature we're missing on Windows, as well as some property pages for the single project stuff. Like if you right-click and hit properties of the project, it's a pretty generic property page right now. So we're going to fix that up, make it a little bit more Maui specific, make it nice. And then we're working on that right now. But for the most part for Windows, you're going to see just more stability and more quality for the rest of the releases. Mac is a whole different story. And I know Daniel has been asking about it a lot on Twitter and on the VS Mac Insiders teams. And then he missed the VS Mac Insiders call we had last week that I was on. And then we forgot to record it.
Yeah, exactly what I said. You forgot to record it.
So consider this your like TLDR from me. We, for 17.0, for VS Max 17.0 GA, which ships in a couple months, I don't know, ask the VS Mac team. Xamarin will be fully supported, obviously. If you're doing a Xamarin development app or whatever, you'll still be able to do that in VS Mac 2022 when that ships. And then everything else on this will come either shortly after GA or in a following version of VS Mac. And it like solely depends on how quickly we can get the quality of it up to par with what we like to ship. But we have basic build, deploy, debug support there. I actually demoed it at .NET Conf in VS Mac in November. We haven't touched it since, and it's still a little flaky, but the basic support is there. But for us to actually go ahead and call Maui support in VS Mac like a stable preview, we need to get better hot reload support. The whole single project and multi-targeting stuff we have to redo. So that's a whole piece of work. And then, of course, a lot of bug fixes. So the Visual Studio for Mac team in particular, has been rewriting the IDE entirely in native UI. And then they just moved it over to the .NET 6 runtime instead of Mono. So that is awesome. It means we had to rebuild most, if not all, of our stuff, which is why that is coming later. But for GA, you'll have Xamarin support, and everything else will come after for Maui. And we'll keep you posted. We're working on, making sure that we keep all the updates in the blogs, and we have an actual roadmap once we kind of get through the triage process that we're in now. So that's it. Hopefully that was easy to follow and somewhat informative. And I also hope that you stick around and watch the rest of the talks today, because I definitely will. And I'm excited. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. But we can say that Visual Studio for Mac running on an M1 is super fast now with their latest preview.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, Visual Studio on the M1, Visual Studio for Mac on the M1. I was shocked. I was like, yeah, that'll work. Yeah, right? And then I did it and I was like, whoa, it does work. That's so exciting.
But I would say Visual Studio on Windows is running better on my virtual machine on my M1 than it do on my client's Windows machine also.
That's pretty funny. I didn't even know that worked.
No, it works. If you use Windows ARM for what's it called? Windows for ARM, the Insider version, you can run with Visual Studio on that. And now with the latest release of Maui, it works to run Maui there also. So I'm happy again.
There we go. All right, we're making you happy. That's all that matters.
That's what you do, right?
Exactly. We just want to make people as not unhappy as possible. That's my latest goal. It used to be I want everyone to be happy. And then when you're like building a whole new product and you have to redo all the tooling and SDK and everything, now at this point, it's just like, don't make people unhappy. We'll get back to making you actively happy in the future.
Okay, we have a lot of questions. So we
Good.
try to see if we can take as many as possible. So the first one, how can we publish Android app in the latest Maui preview in Visual Studio 2022 preview for production?
Yeah. Good question. So we're not recommending that you publish Maui apps to production because Maui itself is in preview. But we've seen people do it. And if you want to, despite my advice, go ahead and do it. There are two ways. Both of them basically are CLI. So you can use the Gerald Lewis, who spoke earlier, actually just posted an issue on the Maui GitHub a couple of days ago, or maybe weeks ago, how to do the CLI steps for publishing to an AAB, an Android app, and then to an IPA for iOS. So you can follow those, and I'll see if I can dig up the link later. And that will work natively on like your local machine. However, for publishing, the right thing to do is set up a pipeline or a GitHub Actions and do like a proper CI/CD that builds it and runs your tests and all those things, and then does the packaging for you as part of that whole pipeline.
Yeah.
That's like the thing that people say you should do. Do I do it? No. But that's what you should do.
We have a related question to that also. Any word on App Center support for Maui apps?
Yeah, really, really good question. We've heard this a lot. We have been talking to the folks who work on App Center, basically trying to get like a roadmap set up. So I don't have any updates right now. The goal is that it will work at some point. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But I don't have any like hard details on it yet, which sucks. Mostly because we have just gotten to the point with Maui where we're like have apps that we can start bothering people to go support. So, yeah.
Then we have a comment. She's nearly singing about SAML there.
Nearly, yeah. Oh, XAML. If there's one programming language that makes me want to sing,
Maddy's wave of motivation is amazing.
Oh, good. Thank you.
It really is.
Yeah. And then we have a question, not Visual Studio related, but Maui. The SAML between Maui and VPF looks to have a minor difference. Is there a converter to go from VPF to Maui?
There is not right now. They are very similar, but they are different. So if you are familiar with WPF/UWP XAML, it is different than Maui. We have tried to make some converters, and they do not work nearly as well as we want them to. So we haven't actually tried again in a little bit recently. So we're not planning on building one right now. We are planning on documenting and coming up with like conversion guides and migration guides. The other thing that's nice is if you can get your WPF app to run on WinUI 3, you can just stick that all as platform-specific code in your Maui app, and then slowly, piece by piece, move things out from WinUI 3 to Maui. To the shared XAML. So there's some options there. It's not great yet, but it will be. It will be great. Just don't hold me to that in like the next year.
Okay. Can we drag and drop user controls like Silva, VPF/WinForce development?
Great question. We do not have a drag and drop designer. So we call those like UI designers or XAML designers. Maui does not have one. The reason is because the target platforms have so many different device sizes and screen sizes and resolutions that trying to intelligently do your XAML for you for all the different layouts and stuff ends up being more work on you than it is help. And so we've tried and failed to make a good designer for Xamarin Forms in particular. So we, for Maui, are focusing explicitly on hot reload right now. We do have a toolbox, though, that shows you all the controls available to you that you can drag and drop onto the XAML editor, like into the XAML itself. So that'll give you the necessary attributes for the XAML components that you need. And of course, hot reload is probably the best way to see your UI updating quickly as you edit things.
Let's see here. I heard Android system is only in the US, but perhaps I heard wrong.
I think right now it is. I've heard that it's supposed to expand elsewhere soon, but that they told me soon in November. So I was just hoping they'd figure that out. But yeah, the reason I believe part of the reason is because of the Amazon App Store situation. So they have to figure out the regulation stuff there. But the plan is to bring it globally or close to globally.
If we are doing MAUI Android development exclusively on a Windows 10 laptop, which is better for performance as well, DX emulators or VSLA?
So in my experience, the Windows subsystem for Android has been super fast. So I would say use that, mostly because I have an AMD CPU and I have so I can't use any of the specific Intel stuff that they use for the ARM architecture or whatever, x64 Android emulators. So I've had a lot better luck using the subsystem myself. That's probably not the case for everybody. Some people have a really good machine that runs emulators well. Many people do not. But I think I mentioned during the talk, and I'll mention it here again, there are certain things you can't do on the Windows subsystem for Android, like the Google Play APIs. And that's because it's using the Amazon App Store as its kind of like distribution. So if you need those, you need to use the emulator.
When we will have Android native and VS deployable too?
Yeah. So .NET MAUI is built on .NET 6 for Android and .NET 6 for iOS, which are just Xamarin Android and Xamarin iOS running on .NET 6, right? So those things are there. They are supported in Visual Studio. To deploy them to an emulator or whatever, it's the same way that you used to do it with Xamarin. So you can do a file new .NET 6 Android app and deploy it onto your emulator Windows subsystem for Android. If you're talking about Android native, like Java or Kotlin, you have to do that in Android Studio because we don't do that in VS. But that's because Android Studio does a really good job at it. So
yeah. So should we go back to this Visual Studio for Mac thing? But I think you answered this question. It will be together with the MAUI release or in the same
No,
time.
it won't be, and it won't necessarily be together. So we're not holding either for the other. VS Mac is about to ship preview 6. That's the next one. And then based on the readiness of preview 6, they're going to decide if they're going to stick with what they currently have as their GA date, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share. So I'm not going to say it because I'll get myself in trouble. But I know that MAUI's GA date is in May, and the VS Max support will not be GA when MAUI goes GA, most likely. VS Max support for developing MAUI apps, solely because of just how things have played out. We're going to ship MAUI GA with preview support in Visual Studio for Mac, regardless of what release they're on, and then continue to kind of like finalize that once MAUI ships. And yeah, that's just how the schedule has fallen, basically.
Yeah, okay.
It's confusing. I need to find like an easier way to say that because there's all these GAs and numbers and things and preview and blah blah blah. But just tweet me or email me and I'll explain it.
Okay. Have some comments here. I love the MAUI team. They are headed in the right direction.
Yay! Thank you. We love to hear that. I'll share that with the team. I think sometimes we get so in the weeds of what's broken and not working that we forget that what we're doing is in the long term going to be really great, I think.
I mean, we should remember this. Everything is preview software. I mean, if I go back to my software, it's also buggy before a stable release.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah. And it's been really fun. Working on MAUI has been a wild ride, but it's very exciting. I think we're really doing some cool stuff with it. So glad to hear people think the same thing.
Yeah. And here we have one that wants your Twitter account.
Yes,
Twitter
it is
handle?
Maddy Montaquila, MADDY MONTAQUILA.
Yeah, you will find
And
that
also in
Dotnet
the
friend.
chat now.
Yeah, and okay. Great. And on the website also.
Oh yeah.
Yes, you can find it on the schedule as well. Yeah,
Sweet. Sweet.
that was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And next year we will book you for the after party. You
Oh, for
your
sure.
band.
We don't charge
Anger
much for
singing.
amateur. So.
Anger singing to Visual Studio and Light singing about Samuel.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you
Okay,
so
we
much.
almost have a set.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Bye.